But today I'm going to be talking about arthropods, which includes insects, spiders, scorpions, crabs, all kinds of things. But we're mostly going to focus on ones here that you would encounter and possibly have to tell people about. So this is what we call a phylogeny tree. It's basically where everything branches off and forms different orders, families, groups. We are going to be focusing on this area, all these guys right here. So, and then next week I'm actually be teaching you guys about amphibians and reptiles. But yeah, today it's all these guys. What is an arthropod? So it means jointed foot in Latin, and the main thing is it has an exoskeleton and not a vertebrae, which we mammals, reptiles, birds all have. They have their skeleton on the outside. So when you see one of these guys, this is not accurate. They don't have bones inside. Give one of these to any biologist and they think it's either the funniest thing in the world or they just roll their eyes at you. So I brought one just to say this is not how spiders work. They have segmented bodies, bilateral symmetry, so usually pretty symmetrical on each side, and an open circulatory system. So they don't have lungs, they actually kind of breathe through that exoskeleton as well. So these are all different arthropods. So it includes insects, arachnids, millipedes. And the main thing that sets them apart is, whether they have a head, thorax, and abdomen. But we'll get into that when we focus on each of those groups. So then we're now going to break down the arthropod group too, which splits off in a bunch of different ways. Oldest one, trilobite, is extinct, but I have a fossil trilobite that you guys can look at afterwards. Another fun thing is we're not really going to focus on the crustaceans because we're probably not going to see too many of them here, except for one. And mostly it's going to be these guys all on the bottom. But actually not the horseshoe crab, which this is one thing I always like to share with people. Horseshoe crabs are closer related to spiders and scorpions than other crustaceans, which is weird. And arthropods are a huge, huge, huge group. They make up this much, well, actually more than that. This is just the insects. And then we also got arachnids over here. They're just a huge family. They make up so many things. So you're not going to learn every single insect. They're discovering new ones like daily practically. So yeah, there's a lot. And why are they important? How many of you, actually I should ask this earlier, how many of you like bugs? You're like, oh yeah, bugs, yeah. How many are like, I don't care, I'm indifferent. Or you're like, oh my gosh, I hate them, they're horrible. So they do have some purpose though, which I'm gonna go into for each of these things on why they're actually super important. Pollination. Actually, you know what, I'm gonna go on this side. There we go. So pollination is the thing that usually everyone will come to mind, like, oh, bees, they pollinate. And that is true. Many plants rely on pollination to reproduce. Some will rely on wind, others really want animals to come to their flowers and go to another flower and spread that pollen. So let's see. The fuzzier the insect or animal, the better it works. And it's not just bees. In fact, honeybees are a very small percentage of the pollinators. Like this is actually a beetle. This was out at one of our sanctuaries. And this bee is covered in pollen. It looks like cheese puffs. So the fuzzier they are, the more they spread that pollen. So, and even butterflies, they're pollinators, but not as much as these fuzzier guys, because they have those long legs. They're not getting all into the pollen themselves, and then they have the long proboscis. So they're kind of hands-off approach with getting nectar from the flowers. And the only animals that actually use the pollen as a food source, not just, oh, it just gets on them when they're going for the nectar, are the bees. They're decomposers. I don't know if you guys have talked about the FBI. It's fungus, bacteria, and invertebrates. So we're going to be focused on the invertebrate part of that. And that's really important. Without them, there'd be dead leaves, dead animals, just all kinds of stuff, poop. There's insects and arthropods that specify just eating animal feces and breaking it down. So they're kind of the cleanup crew, which is very important. They're food for other animals, including us humans. So these are some birds out at Devil's Punch Bowl that were munching on some caterpillars, a grasshopper. There's tons of birds that eat insects. There's a whole group called fly catchers. That's their thing, is catching flies. But we'll do birds are another day. Reptiles eat a lot of insects. And even humans, most parts of the world, people eat bugs. It's not weird. In fact, this is a lobster, which is an arthropod that is normal to eat. So yeah, they're a good source of protein and food and take up a lot less space and resources than a lot of livestock. So maybe bugs are going to be part of the future food. We'll see. Yeah, I've had bugs before. They're not bad. They're also natural pest control. I mean, some insects we consider pests, but there's also insects and arthropods that eat those. So this is a robber fly eating a crane fly. This is a assassin bug eating some kind of beetle. Jumping spider with a roach. And even ladybugs. Everyone's like, oh, ladybugs, they're so cute. They are ferocious little things, which is great because they eat aphids, they eat your plants. So they're great in your garden. But yeah, they're very avid predators. So being an arthropod and having that exoskeleton, they grow a little differently than us that have vertebrae. They go through something called metamorphosis, through molting, and some insects have very different ways of doing it. There's without a complete metamorphosis, which is just eggs, and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, looking all the same. Kind of similar to how we are. When we're little kids, we look like humans still, and we just get bigger. Incomplete is they change a little bit. So this is the egg, and it's called a nymph when it's not full grown. The adult has wings, but the nymphs don't. So as they grow, they start getting different appendages, such as wings, to their adulthood. And then there's complete metamorphosis, which is caterpillars, larvae. That's what butterflies do. Beetles actually have a larva too, and flies, which flies larva is maggots. Yay. Actually, yeah, if you have any questions, just raise your hand, like whenever. Yes?
I was wondering, because like the top one looks like a silverfish, the middle one, I don't know. Is that a specific bug? Because I can't figure it out.
Yes, so that is actually, we're going to go through some of the main families. This is the actual true bug. I'll use the term bug, a lot of people do interchangeably, but that's really only one group of insects. But yeah, a lot of people say, oh, a butterfly, this is a bug. But yeah, it's really just this one. So yeah, silverfish, those are ones that we have. And then this is a type of true bug. And then, yeah, a butterfly, which is in the Lepidoptera family. So molting is quite the process. To do it, they basically have to squeeze out of their old exoskeleton. They got a brand new one underneath. And then they crawl out of the old one that's kind of getting too cramped. And then as they come out, they can their larger exoskeleton underneath can open up and then they can have more room in that thing. So it's kind of like if you had a pair of really tight skinny jeans and you're trying to wiggle to get them off on the floor, and then you got a brand new pair that fits you better underneath. So this is a cicada that is molting.
Do they grow new wings in that process as well? Or?
Yeah, so a lot of the ones that molt, they get their wings at their last stage of adulthood, and then they don't molt after that. Cicadas, I'll get more into them with their family. They actually spend most of their life underground eating plant roots and stuff. I know some that every 17 years emerge. So they're underground for 17 years, just living their life. Then they all come up, molt through this process, are these winged adults. They run around making a loud buzzing sound, and they live for 2 weeks, and then they die. So, so yeah, they only have these wings for like 2 weeks, this particular insect, and that's to get them from place to place to find a mate, lay their eggs, and then that's it. That's the only purpose of the wings. But yeah, it's actually really cool. Like you can see the wings are just bunched up little things on its back, and they kind of have to let them unravel and then dry off. It's really cool if you've ever seen a butterfly do it. And sometimes they don't, like I've had some butterflies where they don't molt their wings quite right, and they can't fly, and then they're kind of your handicap pet for the rest of their lives. So here's some kind of gifts of molting. This is a tarantula, which is always a fun one. They actually will spin this little silk mat, lay on it on their back, which first time people that don't know this, they see their tarantula on its back, like, oh no, it died. And nope, just give it time. And it can take hours for tarantulas to molt. Also caterpillars, they call their different stages instars. This is one kind of, it's basically like crawling out of a sleeping bag and then just leaving it behind. And then this is a mayfly too. And they just, crawl out. There's this little thing on the end. So yeah, that's their whole process for growing. And during that stage when they have that new exoskeleton, they're very vulnerable because it's soft. It hasn't quite hardened yet. So like with tarantulas, usually it's about a week before you feed them, because when they're soft like that, the crickets that we typically would feed them, they'll just eat the tarantula. So, well, it's nice and soft and delicate. So, mouth parts. So insects have a really varied mouths versus a lot of other vertebrates. They have, some are chewing. This is probably a beetle. Some will have a proboscis that sticks out for slurping up nectar. Piercing and sucking. It's literally just a knife that they stab into other insects or their prey and slurp it up and eat it. Lapping. This is a lot with flies. They'll like kind of stick there. Oh, here's a fly down here for getting liquid that way.
If you go back.
Yes.
What was the knife thing called?
Proboscis.
Oh, so the proboscis also does the piercing and sucking.
Yeah, it's kind of, anytime it's like a long thing. Yeah, I think I've heard, proboscis used interchangeably between those things. So yeah, it can vary from some species, like I know true bugs have a lot of times this proboscis thing. But yeah, in some animals, like some moths, once they pupate into an adult moth, they don't even have any mouth parts because they have one job, which is go, mate, lay eggs, and then die. So a lot of the silk moth family, it's like that. So yeah, it's like, nope, you don't need to eat. You did all your eating as a caterpillar. You just got to mate now.
Fireflies do that, right?
I don't know. I actually don't know a lot about fireflies because we don't have them here. So I think so. It's probably, I know that's what cicadas do. It's kind of, just the last few weeks to reproduce and fly around. So we're going to go over a few of the different subphylums and classes. And the first one is crustaceans. So we don't have any crustaceans here, do we? Yes, we do. They're actually not here. Most of them aren't native to here, but we find them all the time. And that's isopods. They're also sometimes called pillbugs, sailbugs, roly-polies, all different names. And that's kind of like, this was the first arthropod I really spent time with as a kid, probably before I could walk. And they are all over the place. The ones we have here are typically, non-native. They're from Europe. I actually have some live ones here of the local species. And they're part of that decomposers group. So their main thing is breaking down plant matter, dead bugs, all kinds of things, fungi. And while we mostly just have these kind of gray ones here, there's some amazing ones all over. Like, this is one I like to show. They call this the rubber ducky isopod because it's got a little rubber ducky face. They're from, I believe, Asia, but there's like this whole world now of isopods as pets, and you can get those guys. I don't have them, but I have some of these today that we can go around and look at. This is one of the largest terrestrial isopods. But, and here's one molting. How they molt is kind of weird. It's like they do one half and then the other. So it's either the top or the bottom. So sometimes in my isopod enclosures, I'll find somebody's basically pants that they molted out of. And here they are just kind of munching on the leaf litter. So they're good for decomposing, but sometimes they can be a little destructive because they'll start eating the plants that aren't decomposing but are alive. But they might be they're an invasive species here, but they're not really a huge problem. Some invasive species are, but they're kind of low on the list for being an issue here.
Olivia?
Yes.
If they're breaking down, I guess, the most basic for the primary consumers, right?
Yeah.
What is it that they break down into? Is it gases that go back into the soil? Is it in their body, and then when they die and decompose, how do they get that into the plants?
A little bit of both. Usually it's their excrement. It goes through them, and then the plants can use that as energy. I don't know about gases. That's a very good question. A lot of things. There's actually a type of spider that's specifically called a sow bug killer. A lot of lizards, birds, all kinds of things will just eat them. But they're a little tough because they have that hard shell. I don't think they're super high on the menu for a lot of things. But yeah, lots of things will eat them too.
So they kind of eat each other at different stages.
Yeah. So they'll provide food for other animals, but then they also are a pest control. So it's kind of this big circle. So if you use pests like poison to kill all the bugs, you're killing the good ones too, and then it's kind of makes the balance a little off. Yes.
So if one were to cook those, would they also turn red and delicious?
I don't know, but that's a very good question. I wonder if they would turn red. I'm very curious now.
Fried rice experiment.
Yeah. I don't know. Would I eat one of them? I'm trying to think about that. I've mostly had like crickets and mealworms, and they're not bad at all. Okay, and the next family.
Let me follow up on that. Are any of those edible?
Yeah. So grasshoppers, definitely, you would not want to eat a millipede. Wasps, not so much. A lot of the ones that are consumed, at least by humans, are larval forms of either some of the beetles, wasps, and butterflies instead of the actual adult form, because they're like in their kind of grubby form, and all they do when they're in that form is eat and eat and eat. So there's a lot of good protein in the larva. So. Okay, so the myriapods would be our millipedes and centipedes. And their thing is long body with just a couple little legs per segment. They have antennae and chewing mouth parts. And most millipedes, they're pretty, I think our next one's millipedes, yeah. So they are more of those decomposers. They have the round body, little tiny legs, they're slow. I actually found one this morning when I was packing up all my stuff at Vasquez Rocks, and same thing, I picked it up, and it secreted this foul smell acid, and actually kind of, I don't know if you can tell, it actually stained my hand kind of an orange color. So they can do that if you pick them up. They can't bite you, but they'll excrete that kind of acidy thing, and that's actually toxic for a lot of other things that weren't trying to eat it. It didn't hurt me because I'm a big human, but if a predator, say, comes in, grabs that, and gets the taste, I'll be like, ooh, ugh. And some things can get really sick from that. And so we have one that looks, I think this is actually in my front yard, this one. We have these a lot. This is the best time of year to find a millipede, because after it rains and it's winter, it doesn't seem like the cold bothers them. You'll see them scooting around at night. Has anyone seen one of these guys here? Probably? Okay, yeah. And then on the other end, we have centipedes. So these ones, yeah, you'll probably find them more common. They typically are carnivorous, and they've got more of those pinching mouth parts for grabbing their prey and ripping it up. And some of those legs have actually formed into venomous sort of claws to subdue their prey with venom, so it's easier for them to eat them. And they typically, yeah, flat body, very long antennas, and they're fast. They're super fast. This is one that's out in the desert that I don't know if they're here, but they can be about maybe like 4 or 5 inches long, pretty big. Don't pick them up because they will bite you, possibly. And this one in the bottom here that looks like a pair of false eyelashes is a house centipede, which are really crazy and freaky looking, but they're actually really great to have in your house because if you have roaches and crickets and other things you don't want, they just hunt and stalk them and eat them like crazy. They're ferocious.
Can you buy them and just like introduce them to your own?
I don't know. I wish I would get one. I haven't found one in my house or caught one. Otherwise, I would bring it here to show you guys. But I know, like, that should be a thing. Maybe I'll start breeding those or something and just be like, here, release centipedes into your house.
Are there any like giant ones in the U.S. or is that just Central America?
Yeah, Central America, Africa, they have some really big species. I just actually a few weeks ago went to a reptile show and they were selling some of those. And yeah, the ones here, the biggest I've seen in our area is this desert centipede that's like 3 or 4 inches.
Are they toxic to humans?
If you were to get bit by one, it would hurt. You wouldn't die. It would just be very unpleasant. Which most of what's on the list, or that I'm talking about, there's only a few things that are kind of potentially venomous that could cause health things other than just hurting and not feeling great. I don't know. I've never encountered people reporting centipede bites to me, so not sure. Okay. So now we have the insects. That's the big group. That's what we mostly will think of, what we call a bug, but typically the thing for all of them is insect. There is one group called bugs, which we'll get to. So insects. So the main thing with insects is they have 3 body parts, 6 legs, and sometimes wings. So the main body parts is the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And also, yeah, 6 legs on each side. Some have antennae, some are really small, but yeah, majority have antennae too. And then, yeah, wings are optional.
Is that a real bug?
This looks,
It's an idealized
I feel like it's an idealized one. It looks kind of like a wasp, I guess, would probably be what I put that under. So there's lots of insects. Here's all the orders. It changes. Sometimes they put some together or split them. It's always changing. That's the thing about science and like the Latin names and the families is they change a lot. But we're not going to focus on all of these because that's a lot. And a lot of them are not really ones that people are going to see or you're going to encounter here on the trails doing presentations. We're just going to talk about these guys, the big ones. So we've got the Odonata is the dragon and damselflies. They're both in the same family, but yeah, separate. Dragonflies are kind of the big ones, big eyes, wings that kind of rest straight like an airplane. The damselflies are a little smaller, and when they are perched on like a branch or something, their wings kind of go behind them. And I've seen both of them here in the park, especially by the ponds. Probably back there too at the hummingbird garden. But yeah, so those are ones to look for. Typically, a lot of the damselflies here, they're blue, and they're I forget what the name of that family is, but yeah, they're little, they're neat. And dragonflies are pretty ferocious. Here is their nymph form, so they don't start out hatching in their egg and looking like a little baby dragonfly. They spend most of their time in water as this little, I don't even know what to describe it, this little water creature. And then they mature out when they're about to become a dragonfly. They'll crawl out of the water, go up on like a log or a piece of wood by their pond, and then they scoot out of that old exoskeleton and then they're a dragonfly. They've got the wings and everything under there ready to go after they molt. They've been around forever. Like before dinosaurs, there were ancient dragonflies that had 2-foot wingspan. They were huge, and some of them will actually migrate. And the main thing with them is their numbers go down when there's less wetland habitat. So having your guys' little ponds here, that's a great little home for them. Yes?
How big are the larvae? Are these the larvae?
Yeah, the larvae. They vary in size.
If I look in the pond for the local ones?
They're probably a little over an inch. I'm trying to think if I feel like I've seen them in the ponds before. But yeah. And they're carnivorous at this stage. They go out and eat other smaller insects. I know some species, they're big enough they go after like tadpoles and stuff. So yeah.
Do they use their consorts thing, or do they just hold on and start munching? I don't see any
I think they just hold on and they have chewing mouth parts and they just start chewing. I think. So these are common ones we'll see around here. Yeah, here's the blue dancer, the flame skimmers, the big orange one, and the variegated meadowhawk, which has the coolest name. It's like a little hawk in insect form. They're kind of bluish. So these are some of the common ones around here. Okay, Orthoptera. That is our grasshoppers, crickets, and katydids. And that means straight-winged, because their wings are pretty straight against their back. The main thing with them is the hind legs for jumping. So they have a really strong, basically kind of hydraulic-powered jumping legs to get from place to place. They have wings, but they don't use them to fly a whole lot. If we were a grasshopper, our equivalent jump would be 500 feet. So yeah, they're really fast. And also with those long legs, they'll rub them together and make sounds, like crickets do that, katydids, and that's called stridulation. And most of that is to attract mates. Yeah, a lot of them, like the katydids, look like a leaf. They're very hard to find. And they are also that incomplete metamorphosis. So the nymphs or babies will look a lot like the adults, just little miniature adults, but they don't have the wings yet. And then when they grow bigger, and then they're in their final form, then they have their wings. So here's some ones around here. This is probably the most common. It's kind of hard to see because they camouflage so well, is the pallid winged grasshopper. They're about maybe an inch. They've got little bands across their body. They blend in with the dirt and the leaf litter like crazy. Another one that a lot of people, if you're here, they'll be like, I saw this really weird bug one time. Let me show you on my phone. And it could be the Jerusalem cricket, also called the potato bug, or La Niña de Tierra, or I think it's El Niño de Tierra. I don't know which one it is. And they're big. Yeah. And they can bite too, because these guys all have chewing mouth parts, primarily for plant material, but these guys eat other things. They're pretty ferocious. And then, yeah, the katydid, which blend in super well. Yes?
Sorry, this might be a bit basic, but are locusts a type of grasshopper?
Yes. Yeah, locusts and grasshoppers, I think it's all locusts are grasshoppers, but not all grasshoppers are locusts. They're just a specific term for them. So I feel like, I think locusts tend to hang out or be in more of a group setting, those species, and grasshoppers they'll classify as being kind of just on their own, kind of more solitary. Yes?
Sorry, one more. The potato bugs.
Yes.
Growing up, we were always afraid of these, and they're not venomous or poisonous, right?
Nope, just pinchy.
They just pinchy?
Just pinch, yeah.
Yeah, because,
I've never been bit by one.
yeah.
I don't.
And if you guys haven't heard them cry or scream, it sounds just like a baby.
Yeah, I haven't heard it.
It's like a baby crying. It was, so that's why we were afraid of these because they would
Scream at you.
scream like a baby. So we were like, "Where's the baby? Where's?" It was like,
Oh my
"Have you
God.
seen this?" You know.
What were you doing?
It's usually
No.
when it's usually when they're belly up. When
Yeah.
they're belly up, they if they're full grown and they're belly up, they won't be able to turn. So
They're just,
yeah, growing up as a kid, like I was telling Renee, like my grandpa, grandma, you hear a baby cry outside, you run outside, and we found one with Olivia
Yeah.
a month ago.
I couldn't get it to
We
scream.
heard it cry.
I kept like
Oh.
flipping over, I'm like, I want to hear it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, we were afraid of those.
Yeah, and we were all, I was always told they were venomous.
And I was
Afraid of them.
growing up. I was like, I don't know if people discover it yet. I've never like knew. Obviously, it's been for ages, but it was just like, oh, I found a brand new species.
yeah.
Looks like a little baby, like the face of the.
Yeah, they have really big eyes. They look like little aliens or
Yeah.
bug baby hybrids or something. But that sound, I'm guessing because a lot of insects don't have vocal box like we do. Most of them either exhale and cause like a hissing sound, or they're rubbing parts together. That's that stridulation. So I got to catch one of these and see what the sound is. My theory would be that it's the legs that cause that sound, possibly. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Or maybe something in their mouth parts they can rub together, make that sound. So, yes. Yes.
Those common crickets that get into people's houses, are they invasive around here, or are they?
I think they're invasive. I'm not 100% sure.
Common house cricket.
Yeah.
Everywhere, so I figured they'd be invasive.
Yeah, I think they are. We do have like a lot of the native crickets I've seen. I don't have a picture of it. They're like, they look like those, but they're huge and they're like black, one solid color. And then there's also one, I wish I put it in here, it's called a camel cricket. It kind of has like a hunched over body shape, not as flat. I actually have some live crickets today because I was going to maybe feed the praying mantis I brought, but we'll get to that later. If you want to see crickets, they're going to be food. Yes.
Crickets.
Yes.
We've had years around my neighborhood, my house,
Mm-hmm.
where all of a sudden they hear the cricket. Every night you get crickets.
Oh.
Everywhere, and then you won't see them for 2 or 3 years. Is there a cycle that these things go through?
I don't think so. They're not like cicadas. It could be just whatever conditions that year. I don't know if it's water related, but
Yeah.
the babies just more of them survived. So there was just more. Because a lot of times with insects, their survival tactic and reproduction thing is have a bunch of babies. Maybe 5 or 2 or so will make it out of the 100 or thousands that they make. So that might have just been the right conditions for a lot more of them to survive. And then there was just more crickets. Yes.
I have a lot of plants. I have a lot of crickets in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Good to have them or not good to have them?
I think they do eat plant material. I feel like the local ones, it's mostly just old kind of decomposing stuff. Do you see them eating any plants that you don't want them to, or?
No, I just make those nice time that, like in summer when it's too dry or when it's make those noises. So when it's gonna rain, it makes those creak all over.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Unless, that's probably the only downside is they're loud, which depends on if you like the noise or not. I'll do you first, Ruth Ann. Yes.
I just looked it up, and the noise is caused by rubbing its leg on its abdomen.
Oh, for the
Through the blood.
Oh, good. Okay, that's what I thought. So I'm gonna have to do a slow-mo. If I find one and get it to do that, I'm gonna do a slow-mo video so we can maybe see that or something. Yes.
I think I once saw Katie did in my yard on a plant, and I couldn't believe how it blended in so good.
Oh,
They
yeah.
sometimes get bigger though, like more round, like the shape of a leaf.
Yeah. They can be all different, like kind of sizes and leaf shapes. This one's actually pretty narrow, but I've seen some where it's literally a leaf with just some legs attached to it.
Plant, and I came really close to touching that.
They're like, wait.
Oh my God, what the heck is that?
Yeah, it's startling when you realize a leaf is not a leaf. Even me, and I like bugs, and I'm like always picking them up. I've definitely been like, oh wait, whoa, my mind is not able. Katydids? I think they're mostly eating vegetation, live vegetation. So I know in some places they can be a little damaging to crops or plants, but they're not in huge swarms like the locusts. So it's not probably not as much damage as like a big group of insects. Yes.
How do arthropods rate on the evolutionary scale? And also, are the pill bugs related to the trilobites? I heard they were one of the first evolutionary species.
Yeah, could go back to that one. Yeah, so they've been around before any vertebrates and stuff. So, and it's worked for them. Insects are probably one of the most successful groups of animals ever. So, they started a long time ago and they haven't changed too much because whatever they're doing is working out for them.
Bugs related to the trilobites, which are extinct?
I think, I'm going to go back to that one because I'm curious now.
I think one of your first slides showed that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, go the first one.
The trilobites the pill bugs were related to them.
So yeah, they're pretty close to here. So this was a whole other subphyla that they're extinct, but these guys all kind of went off in different directions. And so yeah, they kind of started from the same kind of common ancestor and just went their ways. So they're closer related to trilobites than like the spiders or the insects over here. Because yeah, they look like a little trilobite, especially one of the ones I brought today. Like makes me think of trilobites. There was a few other questions. Yes.
You said that crickets a lot of them are invasive. I would buy them to feed my live ones to feed my water dragon. So are those the invasive ones, do you think?
Yes.
They would live behind my fridge.
Yeah. Yep. Those are some. I forget that there's the two species of crickets that are typically used to feed animals in the pet trade, which I buy them every week. So yeah, I think it's the house cricket. There's a banded cricket too, but yeah, those are. I don't know if they would really take too much hold if like a bunch of them got out in your house and then just start a population.
Yeah, they don't seem to do that.
Yeah.
Aren't there crickets also that eat clothes?
Not crickets, actually. I'll point out the ones that do eat clothes because
We used to have them in our house.
Yeah.
Some kind of bug that would eat.
Yeah.
In the laundry.
Yeah, that's probably a moth, which, yeah, I'll talk about those guys because they're the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, arthropods. Okay, and speaking of other things that blend in, walking sticks. So they're another separate order. This is not a local species. I forget where that's from. But we do have ones here that look a lot like this. Yeah, they're herbivorous. Actually, this was a new thing I learned. Bats get them because even though they blend in, the bats with their echolocation can detect them and grab them. So, and then they will also drop limbs. Like say a bird's coming in, it grabs a leg, it'll just like say, okay, you can have that leg. I'm gonna escape. And that's another cool thing a lot of arthropods will do is if they lose an appendage and they still have another molt, it'll grow back. I know some of the tarantulas I've kept, one molted and then just, I don't know what, she didn't like that leg. She just dropped a leg because something must have been wrong with it, and then she molted again and had a really kind of smaller leg in that one's place. And then next time she molts, you won't even know. So it's usually a couple molts for that leg to be kind of normal again. So, but yeah, the stick insects are pretty amazing. I think the first one I ever found was right outside the door by the bathrooms, and I also found one on the turkey vulture enclosure here.
I have a picture of that.
Oh, okay, you were there with me. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was big.
There are species that are like.
Now, how thick are those big boys?
They're about pencil size. I've seen them the only place I've seen them is like zoos. So you can't get them as like, I know you have to have permits to keep some of these like different katydids and stick insects. So a lot of like, yeah, zoo institutions will have those. The native ones we have here, maybe the length of the body, not including the legs, because they'll stick their legs and antenna out so that they look like longer, but the body will be about probably 3 inches. So then the whole thing will be maybe like 4 or 5.
They really just look like a twig.
Yeah, it's hard to find them. Oh my gosh.
Do some other bugs mistakenly eat the leaf-lipping one, think it's a leaf?
I wonder. That's a very good question. I bet that happens. I bet some herbivores just munch and then they're like, wait, that's not a leaf.
Why is this moving?
Yeah. Yeah, so it probably doesn't work in that case. Okay, mantises. Another one that's very good at blending in with their environment, but they use it to be an ambush predator. They are all about catching things, eating them. They have these lovely kind of the praying forelegs are used almost like a mouth that have these serrated parts right here, and say like a fly or cricket or something walks by, they use that to chomp and grab it, and then they'll just use their chewing mouth parts right here and just start eating it alive. I've seen that when I fed my mantis. The cricket's alive and it's just like nom nom, just going for it. They are so crazy as far as hunting. They will eat things larger than them, including lizards, birds. Wow. I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen on like the internet, like going around sometimes, there'll be a picture of a hummingbird feeder and there'll be a praying mantis eating a hummingbird. Mm-hmm. That does happen, which is, anytime it's like an invertebrate eating a vertebrate, it's like, whoa.
Wait, there's still this, like the small ones? Or
yeah, they're pretty big. It's not the little guys, yeah. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, so most of like the big green mantises that you see around here are invasive. They're from the Mediterranean. Yes.
So years ago, I had a little ecosystem going on. I had a spa in when I was in Valencia, and we had to have one of those electronic bug zappers.
Oh,
And the praying mantises figured out. I don't know how they got up there. I guess they climbed on the overhang and climbed down. They sat on the outside. And they ate the bugs that were attracted.
Oh.
Exactly. So
sneaky.
But every now and then one got zapped.
Oh.
Not the mantises.
Oh.
Never had a zapped mantis.
Oh.
They were smart enough not to put their little feet in. But if anything did get zapped and it fell, we used to have toads from the South Fork come into my yard.
Oh.
And they'd sit underneath and they would eat them.
Oh, nice.
It's really an interesting ecosystem I have.
Yeah, it's amazing. Light really affects well, we'll get to like moths and stuff. Light affects a lot of insects. Like, yeah, I'm sure you've had like a porch light on and like, oh my God, there's moths everywhere. And I've had it where, yep, the praying mantises come in, and then below where's different other insects. I wish I had toads to eat whoever falls, and yeah, it's amazing.
I swear I saw a movie where there was a little string around one of their necks and it was a pet for somebody.
That's right.
Is that BS, or do they have that kind of intelligence?
Not super like, I mean, they're smart enough to know, like, I have a pet one that I have here I'll bring out and show, but like when I open the thing, I think she kind of knows like, oh, this is when the food comes, when that opens. Like they kind of put 2 and 2 together. And yeah, one of the weird things with them that also adds to their kind of freaky ability is they can turn their heads. Most insects, their head is just part of their body. It's like wearing a suit of armor that you can't turn in. But them, they can turn their head and look at you. They have 5 eyes. There's the big ones that they look at you with, but then there's 3 little ones down here by their antenna. But yeah, the 2, 4, these ones, and they have like almost like 360 vision. They can see really well. And like, so bottom here, these are not native ones. This is an orchid mantis and a devil's flower mantis. But yeah, this one looks like a flower. So yeah, things will come up like, that actually will attract pollinators. So like, oh, let me get some nectar. Oh, nope, it's a praying mantis. Yes.
Is the green one, the brown one, or both native to our area?
So I think that's the next one. Yeah, okay, here's all the native ones. So we do have, they can vary in color. The European ones or Mediterranean, the ones that are always out in, the ones you probably see in your garden, you buy from Home Depot to release in your garden, whatever. Those are usually invasive ones. We do have native ones. This is an Arizona mantis, but there's a California mantis. I don't think I have a really good picture of one. I've seen the California mantises in both brown and green. So I think they change colors, I've heard, based on their environment. In fact, the one I have that's alive with me today is a giant Asian mantis. This is the second one I've gotten. My first one was green, and this one's like kind of a tan. So I don't know if it's because the other one I had more leaves in its environment. This one I just have some sticks, so she's kind of taking on a stick color. I'm not 100%. But so with the mantises, they also do that incomplete metamorphosis. When they start, they look like a mantis, just itty bitty. And then they grow and grow, and then when they're adult, they get their wings. And typically with most species, the males kind of are slimmer and their wings will go past their abdomen part, whereas this one, the wings kind of go almost to the end and stop. This is a female. So it's kind of how you can tell male and female when they're adults. When they're babies, depending on the species, you can look at this kind of segments along their abdomen underside, and it's like, if it's this many, it's a male. If it's this many, it's a female. So that's one way to tell. This is a common one that's also native that is not seen as much. I don't know if you have them here. I get them out in the desert where I live. It's called an agile ground mantis. They're only about an inch, and they're fast little guys. And those are the ones I typically will see if I leave a light on in the summer at night. They're there to nab the moths and everybody that's there. And praying mantises, they will lay, their egg sac is called an ootheca, and you'll sometimes see them around here. It looks like a little, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost foam-like. The eggs will be inside, and they are surrounded by this kind of foamy protective shell thing. And then the babies come out, and there's just tons of babies. I know that the native species, the California, it's kind of round like this, whereas the Mediterranean, the non-native ones, the top of their ootheca kind of has like a pointed, like it looks like a house. So that's one thing.
So the mantis, they don't go through a metamorphosis. They're born shaped the same way.
Yeah, it's an incomplete metamorphosis. Incomplete's when it's like a caterpillar and then turns into a butterfly, which, yeah, they're one of the incomplete metamorphoses. Also, the cockroaches, yay! And termites. So cockroaches, most of the ones we have around here that you'll get in your yard and everything are invasive species. I think there's a German one, an Asian one. I don't know the cockroaches very well, but typically what's in your house is a non-native cockroach. Because the native ones don't want to be in your house. They are not attracted to human anything, and they don't want to be around us. I think I have a picture of some of our native ones, but the females will keep their ootheca just attached to their bottom, and they're running around with it on them, which is really weird. Termites are also in the same family, and they've got, aside from ants, they've got a really complex social structure with like a reproductive adult, and then like the queen. They have even like a king, I guess. I don't know. But they'll have ones that are soldiers, and then ones that are gatherers, reproductive. Termites are really strange. But the roaches, they are actually part of that whole decomposer thing. They've been around forever. Yeah, most of the ones here are invasive and pests. And yeah, sometimes people actually develop allergies to them based on like the dust from their molts and their poop that are left behind. Oh yeah, so these are all the invasive ones. And I don't know if you guys can see on the bottom here, this is actually a male and a female of a little desert cockroach. These were actually also attracted to a light where I live. I don't know if you guys would have them here. I live out in the Antelope Valley, so we get kind of different stuff. But these are native roaches. That's the closest I ever see them in my house, is outside on the lights. And they're not tons of them. Usually it's like 2 at the most. So there are native roaches that aren't really much of a problem. It's just all these guys that are invasive that come in. But there are a lot of insects that do eat those that are good to have around, which we'll get to some of them later. Termites. Yeah, there's a couple different kinds. They don't even sleep. They just would, munching it all day. Yeah, here's a whole bunch. Sometimes you'll lift something and you'll be, oh my God, there's all these things. A lot of them kind of usually go for decaying wood, but unfortunately, sometimes your house. They are very good at breaking down old wood. That's kind of their main thing, is being a decomposer and turning big logs into just dirt back into the environment again.
Wait, sorry, so is it standard for insects to sleep?
I don't know. I think so. They must take a break time. I know, well, it's funny because like I saw that, I'm like, wow, that's cool. And then I didn't even think, oh wait, what did the other ones do? Yeah, because some are nocturnal and they'll just kind of, you can't tell if they're asleep because they don't close their eyes because their eyes are exoskeletons. So I don't know.
They might do what birds do and
Yeah.
turn off half their brain.
Yeah.
The other half awake to keep an eye on things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so bugs, that one that was earlier, I know somebody was wondering what that one was. This is a true bug. So when you say bug, this is what you should be talking about, not just all insects, even though it's used interchangeably. The main thing with them is their wings cross over in an X, but that's only when they're adults that you can tell that. They also do that incomplete metamorphosis where they start out as little things that look similar to the adults, and then when they're big, their final molt, they have the wings. And they're really varied too. There's all different kinds. Oh yeah, here's that metamorphosis. See, it's no wings, no wings. Oh, we got little nubbins for wings. Then, oh, bigger nubbins for wings. Oh, now we got full wings. We can fly. And yeah, there's a huge family. Let's see. There's the water striders that you'll see on the creek. That's in this family. Bed bugs, which I hope none of you have ever experienced. That's in this family. Stink bugs. You'll see these green kind of shield-shaped guys that stink. I think it's more on the East Coast that they're like a big problem coming into people's houses in the winter. But, and then, I don't know if you guys have these, but yeah. They are known for having that proboscis for either poking and sucking, either plant material, or in this case, it's sucking and poking a beetle. And they call these assassin bugs, which is very intimidating. Yes?
So I'm familiar with the black stink bug. Is that in the beetle family?
Yes. Yeah, we'll get to them. I actually have some live ones of those too. Yeah. Yeah, so this is an actual stink bug. We'll talk about the other not stink bugs too. But yeah, and so cicadas are in this family, aphids, leafhoppers, yeah, a bunch of little things. These ones are on milkweed. You'll see these when you plant milkweed for the monarchs, these weird little red guys, those are a bug. This is one of those stink bugs. This is, yeah, one of those assassins, a bee assassin, and who's on this end? Ambush bugs. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, it's hard to see. But this is actually a fly right here, and there's an assassin bug in here that looks just like the flower. Yeah, I don't know if it's too small. You can't really tell with this image, but yeah, they'll blend in with the flower and just be like, surprise! That's the assassin part. And yeah, this one right here, this was taken on my screen door. This is called a Western blood-sucking cone nose. I don't know if you have them here. They're associated with wood rats, which I'm sure you'll learn about in mammals. And they can actually spread something they call them kissing bugs, that's another term, because they will go up to people if you're sleeping and you have them in your house, which is very unlikely that you have them in your house. And they'll use that proboscis and go right in the soft part by your mouth and suck some blood. And they can spread something called Chagas disease, which will make you very sick. So that's a thing to watch out about.
Are they common?
No, they're not super common. So I live in the sticks. That's why I get them on my screen door. I don't think you guys would have them here. But yeah, they'll hang out in the wood rat nests and go after wood rats. So if you are worried about them, you just make sure there's no wood rat nests near your house, because then these guys might come in. Yes?
Is the California bee assassin partly responsible for the disappearance of some bees?
Probably wouldn't do that much of a dent in the bee population. there's other predators that are doing a lot more catching some of our bees and native bees and stuff. But yeah, they probably would go for other things like flies, beetles. So I don't think they're really affecting bee populations at all. They're actually not super common. Okay, these are also more true bugs. This is a cicada. It's actually a rare one that we got up at Devil's Punch Bowl, another one of our parks. This is one, molting at night. Water boatmen, sometimes you'll get them in your creek in addition to the water striders. Those are true bugs that are made to be aquatic. And then if you've ever seen this on oak trees, it's like these little kind of bumpy yellow things. That's a scale bug that's really microscopic, and it will make this sort of shell around it while it's eating the tree or plant or whatever it is. Okay, and then another family, Neuroptera. This is the lacewings, these green ones. Antlions, which as an adult, they look a lot like a dragonfly, but they're out at night, and they have sort of club-shaped antenna. Dragonflies don't really have antennas that are super visible. But the fun part with them, I know you guys have these here, is their larva is known as an antlion. It's this little fat football-shaped thing with big old pinchers, and they make these pits. They're like this little sandy cone. And what happens is if an ant drops in, they grab it. Sometimes the ants will be crawling out of that big pit, and they'll actually throw sand up at it to knock it down so they can grab it, which might have been the inspiration for Star Wars with the Sarlacc pit. I don't know. It's like a miniature version of that. But yeah, they're called Neuroptera, which means nerve wing, because they kind of have these like little, they're not actual nerves, but little kind of things in their, venation looks like nerves. They do a complete metamorphosis, because you can see this looks absolutely nothing like that. Once these are big and fat enough, which they actually don't even poop. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, it sounds terrible. And then they spin a cocoon, and then they come out and they look like a completely different thing. So yeah, if you're, I don't know if you guys still do like night programs, but you'll sometimes see these guys around the lights, because nighttime lights is a good way to get insects. Okay, here's the big one, the big family of all the things. Coleoptera, the beetles. They are the largest order of species on Earth. There are 350,000 named species and more being discovered. They are probably, one of the most successful groups of animals. So they have wings. Some of them fly, some of them don't, which we'll get to some of that don't. But their thing is they have this wing, and then they have this little shell that protects it and goes over it, and that's called the elytra. So this thin little wing will actually fold up nice inside against its abdomen, and then this will kind of close up and cover it, kind of like a car hood or something. They also do the complete metamorphosis. They start out with a little grubby larva, and then when they're an adult, they're this. So if you ever see a beetle, it's not going to grow or molt. That's it. That's its final form, and that's as big as it's going to get. But yeah, and their thorax and abdomen, it's kind of harder to tell because they're tucked under that elytra. And yeah, diverse in every way. There is a beetle for everything. There are so many beetles. There's beetles that eat plants, beetles that decompose, beetles that are carnivores and predators, and all kinds of beetles. So the carnivorous beetles, here's a few of them, are, this is actually one I saw in Arizona. It's a soldier beetle, but it's got these big old crazy mandibles for chewing and grabbing and going after other insects. They also have aquatic beetles, which these are some sunburst diving beetles. Forget what this guy was, but it was a carnivorous beetle with, actually it might be a, what's it called? A beetle that looks for, that eats decomposing dead things. Some of them have these little antennae like that. And then, of course, our friendly ladybug is actually a ferocious carnivore on aphids. So they're fine unless you're an aphid. There's also herbivorous beetles. See, here's these guys again that are getting that pollen, which they're not eating the pollen. They're probably going after the nectar and eating the plant flower petals here. That's hard to tell, but that's another plant beetle that's eating the flower. This is a fun one. It's called a weevil, which is a type of beetle. And weevils are known for having this little thing that sticks out of their head. It's not really like a nose. It looks like a nose, but the antenna come off that, so it looks like he's got a weird nose and a mustache. And this particular weevil, this is a yucca weevil. So in the springtime when the yucca stalks are up, if there's any damage or like some person goes over and knocks the flower down and breaks it like a jerk, these beetles will come and you'll see them all over around that yucca stalk. But if you start getting too close, they're like, oh, danger, and they'll just drop into the yucca stalk where all the spikes are, and then they're down there safe. Which, I don't know, I wonder if they impale themselves when they do that. Yes? Oh my God, it is. They're like, I'm a seed. I'm just a seed. Don't mind me. I'm just eating this plant. Yeah. They're about the same size. Well, they're pretty big. So I don't know if you've seen them here in this park, but yeah, next time you see a yucca stalk that maybe somebody broke, just look closer and see if you see this big beetle here. And then this is a beetle too. This is a plant beetle larva that looks like a very shiny metallic thing. And they're on a lot of like the broom sages and rabbit brush, but yep, beetles are in larval bug form. In fact, oh yeah, so here's a big larva. So this is probably the largest beetle we have in this area. Oh, here, perfect. This is the plant beetle, and then this is the adult. So that's larva and then adult, and these were on the same plant. But yeah, so this big old thing, this is a California Prionis beetle. This is a male. He's got these big antennae for smelling out the females. The females are even bigger, but they're about that big. They're huge. And they're another one, if you see them and poke them, they'll rub their legs on their abdomen. It makes like a sound. It's not vocal cords, it's just them rubbing parts of their exoskeleton together. And I was fortunate enough to find their larvae, which are as big as that's my hand. That's how big their fingers are. This was under a pinyon pine that had fallen over that was dead in a storm up at one of our other parks. And I saw them down in the dirt, and I'm like, what the heck is this? And then I looked it up, yeah, so that's the larval form of that. And then the detritivores. So these are ones that are just eating dead stuff on the ground, whether it's plants or dead insects or poop, just anything that needs to be decomposed, they will eat it. So this guy, who's probably one of those common bugs you're going to see on the trail, is actually, people call them stink bugs. Or another term is clown beetle, because they kind of do this headstand thing. But with them, they will stick their rear in the air and produce a very foul smell. And that's a defense mechanism. They're kind of like the same idea as a skunk. Whereas these guys, so I have live ones of both of these I can show you guys. This is called a blue feigning death beetle. Their method of, if a predator comes to them, is play dead. They'll literally like just curl up and have their little legs up and be like, I'm dead. And a lot of predators that are very motion-based won't even see it. They'll be like, wait, where'd the thing that was moving go that I wanted to eat? So they kind of do what an opossum does. And this is another little darkling beetle that's kind of got little fuzzies all over it. And I didn't include it here. There's one more beetle called a diabolical ironclad beetle. It kind of looks like this. It's flat. It has the coolest name. It is the least diabolical and offensive bug you will ever find, because when you pick it up, it tucks its little legs into its exoskeleton and it looks like a rock. I can't believe I didn't have a picture of that in here. But yeah, so this is like, I always tell, like, because I had one of all three that I used to present to kids. This was the skunk, this was the opossum, and the other one was the tortoise. So they kind of, all very similar beetles that all have a very different method of defense. So,
Sorry.
Yes.
This one was called some sort of stink bug?
This guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, people will call them stink bugs, but they're technically a darkling beetle.
And the smell, is it like skunk, like it's annoying to get rid of? Should we be careful? Or like?
It just smells bad. It doesn't smell like, it's hard to describe. It smells more chemically than like a poop or a fart or something. It's just this weird noxious kind of chemical smell. It's hard to get rid of. I one time put my hand in a glove that I left on my patio, and one of them had moved in, and I got my finger all smelling like that, and it was bothering me. Do we want to take a break, or what's our timing? I guess we can huh? Okay. I guess we can blast through this, and then I don't know if you guys want to. I'll have some of my live insects out, and we can talk about it, and then we can. It's unfortunately it's the wrong time of year to look for insects and bugs because it's cold, but we'll try. We'll find something. We'll go on a little walk and look. We might find evidence of something if we don't find the bug. Insect. Okay, Hymenoptera. That's our ants, bees, wasps, and sawflies, and they are. Oh, let's see. Wait. They usually have a very narrow waist between their abdomen and their thorax. Especially in some wasps, they call them thread-waisted wasps. Yeah, it's like a thread holding that two parts together. What's really interesting about them is they tend to be social, especially the ants and wasps. The only other one that's like that with a social hierarchy would be the termites. 1/3 of all crops are pollinated by bees. And the stingers that they have are modified ovipositors for eggs and are only on the females. So a lot of insects will have, it's called an ovipositor. In fact, crickets have it. It's this long thing that sticks out in their rear, and they use that to poke in the ground and lay eggs. But the bees would take that stinger and take that ovipositor and make it a stinger for injecting venom, which is pretty crazy. Except the female, like with honeybees, the queen will be using that actually still as an ovipositor because she's the only one that's reproducing and laying eggs. And so honeybees are actually invasive, they're not invasive, they're, what's the term for them? They're introduced, naturalized, that's one. So honeybees they're from Europe, and they were brought over to the US with people. And even though they're an invasive species, they're kind of just naturalized, they're not affecting other insect species really too much. They're just kind of here existing amongst the other insects. But the main bees that are having a problem are some of our native bees. Honeybees, they're doing okay. They're technically like livestock. But especially bumblebees, they're the ones kind of having problems. And that's important because bumblebees were the only things that will pollinate specific flowers, because that buzzing that they do will actually spur the flower into producing more pollen and reproducing more. So yeah, honeybees not honeybees, a lot of our native bees are very important. Like this is probably one you'll see, the carpenter bee, female, they're huge. The females are dark, the males are actually this little like kind of orangey color with green eyes, they're really cute. There's bees that live alone and dig. This one is already digging in the ground.
They live alone?
Yeah. Yep, they're not in a hive. They're just in a hole in the ground just doing their thing. Yeah, there's the honeybees. This is a swarm. Sweat bees, they're the ones that are very shiny and green. They're often on some of our Encelia. I don't know if you guys have that here, but and what's really cool is even though they're solitary, sometimes they will actually, this is a type of bee called a cellophane bee. We looked it up. The males would all get together and roost and sleep together in one area, kind of like crows will all go to their roost and sleep. These bees will do it. Only the boys. It's like the boys only sleep over. Some different bees will do that. This is actually a really cool one. It's called the Crotch's bumblebee. That's one of our endangered ones that I've seen at a lot of our natural areas. I've been following them. And this is a male. And what he does is he'll have his territory. He'll just perch up on a flower and he'll chase away other things. Kind of like the hummingbirds do.
Is that bigger bee from here or?
Let's see, that was taken, I think, at one of our wildlife sanctuaries. Oh. A lot of these pictures are ones that my boyfriend took, so.
So bees, are they all fuzzy or are there some non-fuzzy? I can't tell.
Oh.
Sweat bees fuzzy.
A lot of bees tend to be fuzzy. The sweat bees have a little fuzz. The bumblebees are very fuzzy, and yeah, the bees are the fuzzy guys. That's why they're so important, because they really carry the pollen on their fuzziness. Then wasps. Oh boy, wasps are crazy too. So this is something we'll probably find today. These oak galls. I think it was mentioned in the ecology class. That is not like a fruit that the tree produces. That is actually a wasp that will lay its egg on the tree, and the tree reacts by building this kind of mass around it. So it protects it. It's like, oh, win-win for the wasp. And if you see like a little hole coming out of it, that's the larva or whoever's in there's already vacated it. So yeah, and if you open these up, they're kind of like foamy. I haven't done it yet, but I've heard you can grind them up and make an ink out of it. So something I'll do that. There's also mason bees and wasps. They'll have like little mud homes, and so that'll be near creeks. They'll build little structures for their larvae, which, oh yeah, they're complete metamorphosis as well. Their larva is a little grubby looking thing, and then they're an adult like this. Probably one of the most famous wasps around here, aside from the ones that get in the burn closures and stuff in the summer that are the worst, is the tarantula hawk. These are huge. They're like that big. I think actually we have a drawer of them in there I should pull out. They're huge. And they have one of the most painful stings, apparently. I haven't been stung by one. You'd really have to harass one to get stung by them. But their sting apparently really hurts. Not deadly, just, yeah, it just hurts. And yeah, look up YouTubes of people getting stung. But they're called tarantula hawks because their method of reproducing is go find a tarantula, try to sting it, which doesn't kill it, it just paralyzes it. Grab this paralyzed spider, drag it over into a hole, and then they lay an egg on the spider. And the spider's still alive, it's just paralyzed sitting in there in this hole, and then it's being eaten alive by the larva of this thing. So, some very alien stuff there, yes?
I don't know if you're going to go deeper into the wasp, but the yellow jacket, is that, like, are they pollinators too?
Some wasps are not so much as bees, because yeah, they're not as fuzzy. They don't have as much stuff to attract that pollen. But yeah, bees and wasps are pollinators. In fact, I have one coming up that's kind of neat.
Olivia,
yes.
Does it depend on what's being stung as to whether they can retract the sting?
Yes.
Or whether it kills them?
Yeah, it depends on the venom and how they're like stung. Like for example, honeybees, if they sting us or like other mammals, we don't have that hard exoskeleton, so their stinger that's barbed will get stuck in our skin, and then when we like flick them off or they pull it out, then it leaves like a lot of their internal organs and they die. I have seen videos where like a bee stung someone and it slowly, the person just waits and it gets itself loose and flies away. But yeah, honeybees, when they sting other arthropods, they have that hard exoskeleton that won't get caught in the skin like us. Yeah, they can just go boop and it comes out. But with us, it's like, oh no, it's stuck. Oh no. So this is another one of some male wasps that are all together. This is another favorite wasp that it's a fun one. You'll see on the trail and kids will ask. Another very painful sting is the velvet ant. It's not an ant, it's a wasp. And typically you'll see the females scooting around on the ground. They have no wings. They never get wings. It's very rare, but there are males and they have wings. There's one of each. But they have a really painful sting, and they have a long stinger that comes out that like you can't see it unless they retract it out, and it's really long compared to their body. Well, not in proportion to their body. But yeah, so if you see them, they come in like typically red, but I've seen orange, white, kind of yellowish. But those are the ones that don't pick them up. They're cute. And that's another one. If you do, like, don't ever do this, but if you poke them, they make a sound. Like they're yelling at you, like, stop touching me. So, okay, and then ants. Ants are also a big family, also social. We have a lot of very cool ones around here. This is southern fire ants, which they sting. They're not fun, but this is just showing a reproductive swarm. So ants will typically have one reproductive queen, sometimes a few, and then a bunch of workers. And the reproductive queen is the only one that is laying eggs. Everyone else, they're working. And they all have their own specific jobs. And usually you'll find the reproductive, both male and female ants after a rain or a thunderstorm, because that'll spur them to, oh, the ground's soft, we could start our own colony and go out. So they'll fly out, males and females, mate, male, nobody needs him anymore, so he goes away, and the female will land, drop off those wings, she doesn't eat it, and start digging. And then she will start her colony from there.
Right, so she lays egg
her whole life from one male. It's so weird. Yeah. Yeah, she just needs to go out once. That's it. She can have babies forever. In fact, this is a honey ant, which is a real, like, probably my favorite ant. They gather nectar and fill their abdomens with that honey, and then they basically are a living storage jar, and they regurgitate it out to their other fellow ants. This is a worker one, though, but at one of the parks I worked at, we had a colony of those, and we had the queen that we got right after she reproduced. We dug holes. And the queen, the honey ant queens can live like 30 years. So she only needs to mate once and makes a colony for 30 years. Like, that's so crazy. They're also, ants are good at being those decomposers. Here's a whole bunch of honey ants dragging off a dead grasshopper. The common ones that we get around here, I'm sure, are the harvester ant and the black harvester ant. Oh, California and black. They can sting, so at least the California ones, so don't recommend picking them up. But they're very important for the California harvester ant for something I'm going to talk about next week, which is a very specific, fun lizard.
Do the ants sting or bite?
Both. It depends on the species. Some will sting, like the fire ants, they sting and it doesn't feel good. Others will just pinch you with their mandibles, because ants typically have those very good mandibles, and some have bigger ones because they're more like the soldier protector ones, and then others are like, oh, I don't have big ones, I'm just here to gather seeds. So, yeah, so they can vary based on their job, but their appearance. Yes?
The size of the fire ant compared to the harvester ant, are they similar size?
No, the fire ants are smaller.
Okay.
Harvester ants are big, and so are the honey, and yeah, these guys are pretty big, but these are small. Okay, Lepidoptera, yay, butterflies. So they have complete metamorphosis, as you probably know, because the caterpillars are from the Lepidoptera family. That's their larval form. And they get their name from scale wing, because if you look really closely at a butterfly's wing, they're covered in little scales, like with a microscope. And there are a lot more moths than butterflies. There are so many moths. You will never learn all the moths. Like, I've done blacklight, where you put up a light to attract insects, and there's so many moths. But, of course, our monarch and the milkweed, that's a very important one. This is probably one of the largest moths that you'll see around here. This is called a white-lined sphinx moth. But you can see how this guy, I mean, they're pollinators, but probably not as good as the bees that get all up in the flower and all fuzzy. Because see, this one, he's just sticking his proboscis into that flower. He's not even landing. And so not a whole lot will get stuck on their proboscis compared to the pollinators that just dive into the flowers. So yeah, the butterflies, this is kind of the thing showing, setting them apart. The moths are, I mean, there's always exceptions. There's some day active moths and some butterflies. Oh, I don't think I've seen butterflies during the evening. Moths tend to be bigger, fuzzier, chunkier, antennae-ier. The main thing with butterflies is they have like a little skinny little antenna and a little club on the end, where moths, it's kind of feathery. Usually the bigger and the featherier the antenna, that's probably a male, because they really rely on that for pheromones from the lady moths. And yeah, they'll typically tuck their wings back like this versus the butterfly that just sort of like the dragonfly and the damselfly with how they hold their wings. So here's a couple of the commonest butterflies that you'll see around here. This is a metal mark. There's a few different species, but they're on the buckwheat. They're very checkered and pretty. Near the creeks, you might get this, that's not the best picture. It's called a Lorquin's Admiral. It's got little white and orange cabbage butterflies. Cabbage white butterflies are all over, common in gardens. The big one that everyone likes, this tiger swallowtail, is big, majestic one, and they like to hang out near the sycamore trees here. Does anyone remember a few years back there were just butterflies forever? Yeah, those were the painted ladies. And they sometimes will do that. There'll just be a year where there's just a boatload of them everywhere. So that's pretty fun. And then these little tiny orange guys are called skippers. So those are kind of some of the most common butterflies. Some moths. This is just showing off some different moths that we have. These are all locally ones that I photographed. This is just a really fuzzy one. He had like all kinds of little fuzzies on him, so I added that. Tiger moths, I've seen those around here, very colorful. The white-lined sphinx moth. Sometimes people will call those hummingbird moths because they look like a hummingbird when they're hovering into the flowers. They're closely related to the tobacco hornworm. The adult form of that hornworm caterpillar looks similar, but doesn't have all the like lines and stuff. And then this is my holy grail moth, the Ceanothus silk moth. They're huge. Their wingspan is probably that, and you can. This one really has fuzzy antenna. And one thing to remember about them is they have like a little Nike symbol right here. So those are around here. They're pretty rare. Those are ones I'm always trying to find. This is actually, I found a caterpillar cocoon and it emerged and was this moth. So then I released it and took some pictures. But they're kind of hard to keep. So, okay. I'm trying to think.
What's going on with the monarchs?
Monarchs?
How come we don't see them anymore?
A lot of different things. They're losing a lot of their habitat, milkweed. Like one of the things actually is people are like, oh, I gotta help the monarchs, let me plant milkweed. And they plant tropical milkweed, which is pretty because it stays that way year round. But that actually is detrimental to the monarchs because it can mess up their migration patterns. Because they're like, oh, there's flowers here, I can just stay here instead of going to where I'm supposed to go in my migration. And also they can harbor diseases. So if you do have tropical milkweed, it's recommended to kind of trim it down so that it can regrow during the winter so it doesn't confuse the monarchs. But yeah, I actually don't know a whole lot about monarchs.
Do you see them in your comings and goings?
I see them occasionally, yeah. Yeah, I've seen them in my yard, but not like crazy. I've meaned to go to like Pismo or Mexico where there's tons of them, but I just haven't had a chance to do that. But yeah, do you guys get them here a lot? No. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't know a whole lot about monarchs. I haven't been studying them much. I should, because they're...
See a lot of them up around Carpinteria.
Yeah, I think that's where one of their spot, yeah.
I think we had one in the observation deck, right, Monica? The one that hatched?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some narrow-leaved milkweed planted over by the Know Your Nature Center. Mm-hmm. And I think it was 2 summers ago, we had several monarchs.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think we're getting towards the end. So Diptera, that's flies, mosquitoes, gnats, midges. They look kind of similar to the wasps, but they don't have that skinny waist, and their antennas are really tiny, and they got big ol' eyes. They are liquid feeders with various mouth parts for sucking stuff. They can taste with both their mouth parts and their legs. They have little sensory organs in their feet. Their larvae are called maggots, so they're a complete metamorphosis. And they actually have, it looks like just 2 wings, but they actually have 4. There's a wing here, and then there's this little kind of thing here called a halter that like works as a gyroscope for when it's balancing, because flies are amazing flyers. But they've done it where like tests where they remove this from them, and they can't fly, they can't do anything. So these little things are super important for their flying, for their big wings. Yeah, different flies that are around here. This is one I've had a lot of people ask me about. They're like, what the heck is this? It looks like a dragonfly, and this is called a robber fly. They kind of have a long body like a dragonfly, and big eyes, but they're actually a fly, and they are basically like little insect birds of prey. They go after, this is a crane fly, they swoop in, grab them. They have one of those stabbing mouth parts to impale them. Flesh fly, those are the ones that are everywhere and annoying. Mosquitoes are in this family as well. Crane fly, those are the ones that people think are mosquitoes, but they're not, they're just the big fly. And also a bee fly, which is a pollinator, because flies are actually really important pollinators too. And this one's, he's got even all the fuzziness. He's got a long proboscis for getting the nectar. So flies are pretty diverse too. Okay, I think this is our last one, is my favorite, arachnids. Yes?
The mosquitoes.
Yes.
The red ones, weren't they the ones that are indigenous to California, and now we've got
The-
those ones that you showed.
Yeah, I forget what they're called.
It starts with an A.
Argentina.
No, oh gosh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I guess they're from Indonesia,
Mm-hmm.
and they prey on us.
Yeah, yeah, they're not. They're another one of those invasive species that have definitely messed things up, and are probably more hungry for humans than some of our native ones. Okay, arachnids. So this is another group. So the arachnids are not insects. They're kind of another branched off thing, which includes scorpions, spiders, harvestmen, ticks, mites, and sun spiders. So these are all arachnids. Usually 8 legs, 8 eyes, but sometimes they don't have 8 eyes, which I'll talk about a very important one that doesn't have 8 eyes. They have pedipalps, little arms. So scorpion has turned those into pinchers. There's little arms on this spider. I think they're part of the mouth parts on the mites and the ticks. They don't ever have wings or antenna. And they are mostly just 2 body parts, which is the head and the cephalothorax. Or no, cephalothorax, it's the head and the thorax together, and then the abdomen. So, scorpions. We have them here. I know Ranger Frank has seen them on some of his night hikes. The ones we have would probably be this one, the California common scorpion. And they can sting. It'll hurt. It's not deadly. We do not have any deadly scorpions that will sting you and cause any super medical situations unless you're allergic for some reason. I've been stung by a desert hairy scorpion, and I would say a honeybee sting is a lot worse because it itches more afterwards. And the main way people tend to get stung is leaving their shoes out on the patio and then slipping their foot in, and a scorpion might have crawled in, and then it'll sting your foot as you put it in, or you're walking around barefoot at night and step on one. But yeah, none of our local ones are dangerous. We do have the largest North American scorpion out in the desert. It's called the desert hairy scorpion, which I also have one here that you guys can look at. And yeah, the best way to find scorpions, though, especially if you're doing a night program, is have a fluorescent, like black light, because they glow, like you can't miss them.
All of them?
Yeah, and so they're not really sure why they do that. It's fluorescent UV reactive light bouncing off, so they're not sure if scorpions use it to see each other, or they still don't have an answer to that, but that's a way to find scorpions. Yeah. Okay, and now the potentially dangerous spiders. The only ones that we really need to worry about here is mostly the black widow, which is, I have also one here. They're the one that's got the hourglass, the long kind of spindly legs. This is a younger one that on the back it has this pattern instead of the hourglass. Very messy webs, but they're pretty good at hiding. They like to hang out in human areas like garages, patios, but if you do bump their web, they tend to run away and hide. Do you guys have brown widows here? Yeah. Okay, yeah, they haven't gone out to the Antelope Valley where I live yet. We mostly have black widows, but yeah, this is the brown widow, which is another species that's been introduced, and they are, you can see a lot, not as black. I've heard their venom's not as strong, but they're right now displacing the black widows. So I don't know what the situation is with that. And then everyone always asks, we do not have brown recluse in California, but we do have the desert recluse, which is very similar, but I have not had a problem with them. They live in my house. I always see them in, like, just crawling around. I've never been bit. I have one today that I actually caught out of my pantry. But yeah, this is one right here. And so to tell a recluse spider from other ones, they do not have 8 eyes. They have 2, 2, and 2. So you look for this 6-eyed thing going on, and that's how you can really tell if it's, unless, yeah, you have to have a magnifying glass. Yeah. Well, I have the one here if you guys want to look closer, but yeah. And they do kind of have that fiddleneck thing, but yeah, I find them out in the desert when I'm picking up couches people like to dump on our properties. Yes?
Excuse me.
Yes?
So which one is more poisonous, the black widow or the brown?
Black.
The black.
Mm-hmm. They're similar, but the black widow does have more venom.
But do you actually die from them? Or do you...
Typically not, no. So most of the time if you are bit by a black widow, most people just go untreated, but some people can react or have some kind of bad reaction or something goes on and they can get sick.
Brown widow, the size of the desert recluse, because it looks like a closer picture.
No, so the recluses are really small. They're not very big, and they don't build any webs at all, where the black widows do. And yeah, so far the only place I've seen them that's closest to here is out in the Antelope Valley. So I don't think you guys get them here. Yes.
We also have the Chilean recluse.
Oh, you do? Yeah, that's one I've been following because they've been introduced. So.
Yeah, I was bit by it a couple years ago.
Oh gosh. Did you get really sick or what happened?
It was on my finger. I was getting some daughter, and it caused the skin to start to.
Oh.
I have pictures if you want to see later.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's I've been hearing about that, so I was wondering because they're an introduced species. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh,
the desert
yes.
recluse. I have seen several spiders that size that look exactly like that in my house, but I don't live in the desert. Is it possible that it's a desert recluse or is it something that looks very similar?
It could be something similar. There's another one that looks really a lot like that. It's bigger. I forget the genus, but I caught one. And I was like, oh, I finally found a desert recluse. Oh my gosh. And I put it on iNaturalist. It was like, nope. And then I moved somewhere where I get them in my yard all the time. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, if you can get pictures or have them, I could probably tell. Okay, big spiders. We do have tarantulas here, and they're my favorite. Oh, one of my favorites. We have three species I found in this area. One is called the ebony tarantula. I have one of those here today. There's a dwarf species of tarantula that's as big as they get, which that's my hand too, so not very big. That was one that I caught and released. Another big one is green lynx spiders. They're green and they got little spikes. They like to hang out on the sacred datura or Jimson weed. Trapdoor spiders, which I'm going to try to find one today. I know we found one the other week, but they build this lovely little tunnel with a perfect door that seals shut. And then this is another one more out in the desert. This is a golden huntsman spider, which might be my favorite spider. I don't know. And yeah, that's pretty big because that's my wrist right there.
Do they build the door or is it?
They build it, yeah. Yeah, they find I think they work with an existing hole, if I'm not mistaken, and they'll wallpaper the inside perfectly and then make this little door out of their silk. Yeah, it seals so good. It's amazing. I couldn't even, yes?
They've been calling, our local tarantulas, California brown. Are they actually ebony?
So with tarantulas, there's typically the common names are used interchangeably. It's not like birds where you're like, oh yeah, that's a Cooper's hawk. It's there's 10 different ones that they call the Mexican red knee. So typically in the spider community, most of people will use the Latin names. But yeah, you can call it for most people, a California brown or ebony is fine. Yeah, there's two species that are local, which I have one of each, but one is very much brown, but that's the one they call the ebony. And then the other one is very solid black, which is called the Steindacher's ebony tarantula. So it's California brown, California ebony. It's fine.
So the lynx one is also technically a tarantula?
Nope. Actually, no. These are just some of the big spiders. Tarantulas and trapdoor spiders are in kind of a separate family from the other spiders, and that's mostly because they're big and chunky. Their fangs point down, so they use their weight to kind of go and get their prey versus other spiders that kind of have this kind of fangs. So yeah, no, these guys are not tarantulas. They're just big spiders. Yes. This is the only species I found around here that's really big. Australia's got some giant ones. Yeah. Yeah, they've got some crazy ones. But yeah, we have this one here, but I've only seen that in the desert. And
I think I have one in my house.
oh,
I've seen that. I'm like, oh, that's what it was.
It's-
My kids were like, it's a tarantula. I'm like, it's not a
yeah,
tarantula.
people will send me pictures like, this is a weird looking tarantula. I'm like, close. Yeah, the only spider that's next to a tarantula is this. Yeah, they're fast. Yeah.
And those ebony tarantulas are up okay.
Huh?
There's a huge colony
Yeah, that's probably, I need to go out there this summer or fall and look. So some other common spiders, I mentioned earlier, the woodlouse spider. It's got big old fangs for prying open those pill bugs and eating them, and it lives in the same leaf litter as them. We get some orb weavers that are very pretty, and they build these elaborate webs, and sometimes they have this little zigzaggy thing going on too, and they'll just hang out right in the center, and they could get pretty big. Wolf spiders are another one that's big that people think, oh my God, is that tarantula? But no, they're almost, no, I guess they're probably half the size of a tarantula. But sometimes they carry all their little babies on their backs after they hatch, so they kind of take care of them.
Why are they called wolf?
Because they don't build a web, they just sort of run and lunge at their prey, kind of like, I guess like a wolf, that's what I've always heard. And so if they're the wolves, this is the cats, the jumping spiders, which are the cutest ever. And they're amazing because they have these forward-facing eyes, and they look at things, and they hunt. Like, they're basically like a cat, but in spider form. And then, does anyone see this? Oh, it's kind of hard to tell with the screen, but there's goldenrod crab spiders are pretty amazing. It's right here. You can hardly tell. But they will go to different flowers, and after a couple days, take the color of it. So I've seen them white. I've seen them this orange or yellow color. And they'll just hang out on that flower, and then a fly or somebody comes by and they grab them. So very good camouflage, yeah. Huh? Yeah, no. Yeah, so a lot of spiders, like most of them can make webs, but they don't like build them like this one does. In fact, jumping spiders, they can make webs, but what they do with it is before they jump, they'll kind of like tether down a web. So if they jump and they can't make it, they got their own like little back tether, and they'll climb back up it so they won't fall and hurt themselves. So they have other ways of using their webs. Even tarantulas, some species are really webby, but they do web down on the ground when they molt. And also sometimes, like say they get like with mine, I'll give them like 2 crickets. They'll kill the crickets, put it in the web, wrap it up with webbing, and make it like a little burrito and eat it that way. So it's all contained. Instead of just, oh no, there's cricket juice everywhere. It's like, oh no, let's wrap this up, and there, now we can eat it.
Is that silver garden indigenous to art?
Yep, yeah, these are.
I saw an orb weaver, it was really kind of small and round.
There's a ton of different orb weavers here. This is just one of the more fancy local native ones. Yeah, if you go to the bug fair, or no, not the bug fair, the Natural History Museum has a spider pavilion. I still haven't gone to it, but they have like ones that are like some exotic giant ones.
Is it the jumping spiders also that make those little nets that they kind of try to swoosh bugs with?
Not jumping spiders. There is one, what are they called? Like net casting spiders, or there's like an ogre face spider. But yeah, they'll totally do that. They'll wait and they'll have like a little net, and they'll just be holding it. When a bug comes down, they'll just grab it with their little net and have it stuck and be like, okay, it's already wrapped up, now I can eat it. Spiders are weird. So, okay, we're at the end. Yes?
So I've noticed little white balls that I think are like spider eggs.
Oh.
Is that?
Are they in web, kind of big round?
Some seem to be near, and others they just float near webs and things like that.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that actually what spiders, how they reproduce? They put out these white eggs? And
Yep. Yeah, some of
one
them.
spider in there, or is there a bunch of them?
It should be, if there's an egg sac, it's probably a whole bunch of eggs in there. So like the wolf spiders will carry it around, so do tarantulas when they lay their eggs. And then the babies, the wolf spiders they'll hop on the back and they'll take care of them for a couple molts, and they're like, okay, guys, go disperse. Yes?
Is the wolf spider the same as what they call the cellar spider?
No. Oh, I wish I had a picture of a cellar spider.
Cellar spiders around here.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have, what was that other one? I'm sorry, I just lost it. There's a couple of other really, really neat little spiders
Yeah.
around here.
Probably the cellar, in fact, I'll probably try to find a cellar spider. Probably find one in this room if I try. But yeah, the cellar spiders will stay near it. Jumping spiders, I've bred jumping spiders before, and they'll make their egg sac.
The funnel spider.
Funnel, yeah, the funnel spiders are really closely related to the wolf spiders. But yeah, like a lot of them, yeah, the jumping spiders, they'll make this big old like sleeping bag. They'll go in there, lay their eggs in them, and they'll just hold it in their sleeping bag thing. And then the eggs emerge, and yeah.
So Olivia, how
Yes.
high they jump in the spiders?
Probably like, so if one that's this big, they can jump maybe like a foot or 2. Yeah. Yeah, they jump around, and they're fun. But they're not dangerous to humans, really. Like, I mean, you can get bit. The most common way that you'd be bit by a spider is you're putting on clothes, it's in your clothes, it's pressed against your skin and freaks out and bites you. Because their main thing is, oh, I just want to run away and get away from this giant human person. So, but I've had jumping spiders like crawl around and kind of look at me. I've also had jumping spiders where I'm trying to take a picture of them and they're going on the other side of the tree and I'm going on this way and we're just doing this thing and I can never get a picture of it. But yeah. So arthropods are very interesting, and reasons why I like doing educational programming with them is they're kind of not really looked at marginalized members of the ecosystem. They're pretty important, even though there are a lot of pests, but they're there for a reason, even if that reason is being food for something else. Invertebrates and arthropods are accessible to everyone. There's bugs in our houses, there's bugs everywhere. You don't have to go to a park really to encounter this type of wildlife. They're all over, so you can find them, they're accessible to everyone. They are also great for ambassador animals. They don't take up a lot of room. I don't even know how many spiders and tarantulas and insects at any given time, but they're easy to care for. They're great to show people. They're easy to keep, small. They eat crickets. Well, it depends on the species, but yeah, I've raised a bunch of different insects, and those are like the ones I brought today to show off and show in person. So they're a great program animal. And there's so many different things to do for programs. Craft programs, you could do a bug walk, putting out a black light at night and just seeing what moths and stuff come to them. There's a lot of opportunity and fun stuff with insects, arthropods, spiders, all of them. And yeah. Bats aren't bugs. But also a really good book to recommend for, like, if you're going to get one book on insects. Yes, this one that she has, yeah. This is an older edition with a dragonfly. It's Insects of the Los Angeles Basin. The newer version has a praying mantis on the cover, but that's a great My First Bug book to have for our local area.
Little bug things in the gift shop.
Yeah.
They're those little clear magnifying boxes.
Yeah, those are great too for if you're on a walk, you can scoop up a bug, look at it, pass it around, it won't get hurt, and then you just open it and let it go.
Please feel free to look at this during break and afterwards.
Yeah, that's a really good book. I should have brought mine. But yeah, I know a lot of us have mentioned iNaturalist in our programs. I'm a very big iNaturalist person. So if you're ever found like some weird bug and you're like, or arthropod, and you're like, I don't know what this is, you can take a picture of it, upload it to the site, and there are people that will tell you what it is. Sometimes it takes a while, then one day you'll look in and somebody will be like, oh, somebody that studies this one specific thing will go in and ID all your ones. So, and you could always like at me to see on there, my username is Olivia, to see if I know what it is, which if I don't, I'll try to find somebody else. But it's a good way to kind of, it's like social media for nature nerds, and it's a lot more pleasant than most social media, and there's a lot more bugs and birds and things that make me happy, so I like it. And yeah, the data is also used, like for the wildlife sanctuaries that I manage, we really rely on iNaturalist for we have a lot of people that go there, take pictures, and we use that data to figure out what's there, how often things are there, what flowers, like which year this flower is prevalent, and so it's really important even to scientists. They definitely use that for different things. So yeah, iNaturalist is fun.